Is this thing on? Welcome to Rebooted the podcast. I'm your host, Alita Hernandez. Come join me weekly to hear about my journey from recovery to healing after having a stroke and other life challenges. So let's get talking. Hi everybody, welcome back to Rebooted the podcast. Your host, Alita Hernandez. Hope everybody had a good week. And last time we had 4th of July and everybody had some vacation time. I tell you right now, I'm a little tired today, so I might seem a little slow or sluggish. I have been taking care of a 10-week-old little Chihuahua puppy, and it was a girl and a boy, and her brother has went off to New York to be with a family member. So now she's all alone. So having a little puppy is like having a little baby. So now the puppy has no idea what to do without sleeping with her little brother. So that'll be a whole nother show when I do a dog pet show, but it's not easy to have puppies. It's another, I don't have enough to do, right? Caring for a family and everything like that. But anyway, I was going to go in a different direction today. Yesterday, and I just say real briefly, I was just when you're exhausted, things bother you. So, I was just a little bothered by some things what's going on in just in general, and then realized that I can't be bothered by other people's thoughts or their concerns. I have to be concerned about my own self, my life, and my family's life. So I just kind of disregarded any comments or anything that I've heard, and said, what the heck, just move on. So that's what I want to talk about today, is just kindness. And just talking about kindness, about where you've learned your kindness. I find that my recollections, I can't even say that today. Recollections. I have a surprise guest next to me who's correcting me right now. And I'll let you know who that is in a minute. But so I remember my grandparents, especially my grandmother. My grandmother was always a person who was selfish. She worked, she got up early in the morning, made breakfast in the morning, got herself ready, and she would take the bus to work, bus and the train to work when she worked in New York. And from Jackson Heights, Queens, she would take public transportation, and she worked at the Empire State Building in New York on 34th Street. And she went there every single day, 5 days a week, and sewed ties for Ole Cassini. And they were all silk ties, and she hand sewed these ties, like the details of the ties. This is the type of quality that clothing and other things that were made here in America, that's how they were. I still have a lot of things that my grandfather kept. A camera, things that were made so long ago, but the quality was amazing. And it's stamped, made in the USA. But I remember my grandmother always, just caring for people. She would see somebody in the street. She didn't have a lot of money. She worked really hard for her money. But, she had an extra quarter, she would give it to somebody in the street. If she saw somebody who needed food, she would go out and give them a plate of food. And I guess that, that came with me. I learned from her. And with that said, I want to introduce you to my special guest, and that is my mother, and the reason I am here. So here's Mom. Mm-hmm. Hi, Mommy.
Hi.
So I have the honor and privilege to have my mother with me at 84 years young. And, we live together, we spend time together, and she knows, I don't know, you might want to recollect that memory with Grandma, that she used to see somebody, a homeless person, I think, and she used to tell you, what did she tell you?
Well, many times she would get home from school, and she would say to me, there's somebody downstairs. Well, the entrance of the building had a telephone. In those days, we had a phone for the building. So on that table, she would say, I'm going to have you go down this plate of food and you leave it right there. There's going to be a gentleman outside the door. Please tell him to come in, sit down and eat. I said, Mommy, do you know who it is? It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. Well, what was happening was I was asking Mom, why did she do that? And I says, well, there are people out there that are really hungry. They have no means of getting anything. and they're not ready to steal. They're not going to steal or take your pocketbook or anything. All they want is a plate of food. So Mom, if she would have come in the subway and somebody would approach her, or you have anything to eat, she said, come by at such a time. Go into this building right here on 65th Street. We live between Central Park and Broadway. And it said, just go downstairs. There's going to be a little table, the phone table. We're going to have a plate of food there, and just have the man to come in, sit down, and have the meal.
Right. And you have to understand, my grandparents at that time, they were living in a one-studio apartment, 4 of them. My mother, her sister, my grandfather, my grandmother. And at that time, it was, early. It was in the 40s, early 50s, right?
Yep.
In the early 50s. They had come over from Puerto Rico in 1945. My mother was a little girl. I actually looked up the Ellis Island record, so I have the copy of the record where they signed, and it shows their age and what year they came in. The same thing for my father and his family, because they came from Puerto Rico too. And at that time, you always come through Ellis Island, so you registered. I don't know why they closed that island. That's another research to do. But things used to work well back then for immigration. But they lived in a one-studio apartment, and it was a shared. It was like a hostel, they call it now, right? So you had studio apartments. You had one bathroom in the floor, and a phone in the hallway. So everybody shared the bathroom and shared the phone. So it was like a big family, everybody had a room, So for my grandmother to even she sacrificed a plate of food, even though she didn't have much. She would scrape. And I remember her doing that, because on Sundays we used to have family dinners, and the cousins and my other aunts and uncles and other people that we knew back in New York, they would come on Sunday, and Grandma would be in the kitchen literally all day. And it was a little tiny kitchen. It always had a window, because I remember we always had a window and a fire escape on the other out in the side in New York. So at least you had that window. But it was a little kitchen, a little sink. It even had even the stove was not a standard 4-burner stove. It was a 4-burner, but it was like those mini stoves.
Yeah.
And she would be cooking for like 10, 12 people in the house. I don't know, she would move things over, and she put it on the side, and she cooked something else, and then she put it on the other side. And so I know I got that from her too, because I cook for a lot of people. I love cooking. I love cooking, having family over, and cooking for them. But that's part of just being kindness, and humanity. I think we've lost a lot of humanity lately. I've seen it so much when you just go outside, you drive around. And I was reflecting on that this week, that I find that so many people are in such a rush, and everybody's in a rush, everybody's angry. Yeah. Like there's so much anger out there that we forgot humanity. We forgot just even be kind to ourselves. And we have to start with ourselves again, self-care, right? And and talking about wellness, we have to be kind to ourselves in order to be kind to somebody else. And I was doing research about kindness and just things that you remember. Like I said, my grandparents always instilled kindness, always to be kind to your neighbor. If they needed it, how many times did you go to the neighbor? They would go next door and tell Anna next door to give you a cup of sugar. Okay, so we'll go next door and have a cup, and you ask for a cup of sugar. Your neighbor would give you a cup of sugar, or salt, or a potato, or rice. I mean, they would share the same way you would do the same thing, and that's what we're missing right now. Like I think that we're missing that in our world right now, because everybody's so disillusioned, and I think people have lost a lot of trust. Also, people have just. I mean, I don't know, you grew up in an era, Mom, that things were so different back in the 50s and the 60s. I mean, you grew up in the era, too, I don't know if you remember, but you grew up during segregation, too. So that was a whole nother story, because I know you have told me stories how a lot of times I would tell my aunt to sit in the back of the bus, and you're like, well, I'm not going to go in, or there were signs that you couldn't go in. And being Puerto Rican, growing up in New York City, even though it's a big melting pot of cultures, they still, anything strange to you, right? Anything that's new to you, I think you always have a fear. And I think that's what that is, that the anger is really fear. I think a lot of times people are running around, everybody's afraid. They're afraid of getting COVID, or thinking they're gonna die from it, or they're not healthy enough. I think there's a lot of things going on, in people's heads that's affecting, you know, the way they treat other people.
But it wasn't that way before. Even though the majority of the people were poor families,
Right.
they were able to share. I used to remember in the building that you mentioned where we live, there was this one small desk with a phone that would be shared by neighbors or
Right.
whoever lived there.
Right.
And every once in a while, Mom would say, Maria, go down and bring this plate of food and put it on
Right.
that table there.
Right.
And I said, why? They said, because there's a gentleman outside the door, just let him in and tell him to come in and sit down and have
Right.
his meal.
And she would.
And I never knew who it was. And no problem, I just opened the door, please come in, dinner is served, it's right at the table there. But she would do that because she felt there are some people that in the street, you can tell that they were hungry, that they were, you know, difficult even walking. I want a glass of water. Now we have the bottled waters. Before they didn't have that. So you would have to go into a building and ask for
For a glass of
somebody
water.
to give you a glass of water.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. We didn't have
Yeah, we
didn't have
didn't
bottled
have-
water.
no, they didn't
You
have
know, there's
that.
little things and conveniences that we have that we don't even realize.
Exactly.
You know, having bottled water, or some places didn't have water.
Well, that's another thing too.
But so I was looking up here that just kindness, that there's different kinds of kindness you've learned, like I've learned through my grandparents again, and it's made a really big perspective in my life, just on a daily basis, like I said before. And kindness also comes from mercy and sympathy. So I was looking up the words. So I looked up, being kind is expressing love to mankind, including ourselves. So just one definition that I found. And mercy is not to harm another human, especially like your enemy or someone who has offended you. So having mercy is really, it's kind of hard because you're trying to not harm somebody. So being kind to somebody who's offended you. And that's why I think I've looked that up, because I was a little offended about a couple of things last couple of days. And but then I said, I'm not taking anything personal. I didn't do anything to anybody. So if I was wrong, I would say I was wrong. I've learned that the hard way, as they say. But mercy also comes from being compassionate. And then sympathy. Then having sympathy is really you enter into the other person's mental state to understand their feeling or emotion. So you have sorrow. So you almost feel that sorrow from that person. So if you think about all that, you have kindness that begins this whole thing, which also enters mercy and sympathy. So I don't know how you are in your life, but I think that all goes with everything you do and everything in your life. With animals, like I said, I was caring for a puppy. And it takes a lot of compassion and a lot of kindness and love to take care of an animal that's defenseless. They don't know you. And I got this little puppy. He was 7 weeks old, 3 pounds, the cutest little thing, little Chihuahua. And we got it for antivirus and for emotional support dog. And but I don't think it's emotionally supporting me more right now than her, because they're just so beautiful. And sometimes you just need that. You need that. But anyway, we're gonna be back in a second. We're gonna go to a quick commercial of Club Secrets, so you can see the good life that you can actually have yourself.
Let's be honest. When you want this VIP lifestyle 24/7, or at least almost 24/7, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Now there is Club Secret, the ultimate lifestyle membership. Our VIP global brand is centered around helping people look better, feel better, and experiencing the world. We have proven world-class self-care products to enhance your outer self so you look like a VIP. We have the ultimate premium supplements and plant-based nutrition to give you the cleanest energy to help you go throughout your day so you feel like a VIP. Being a part of Club Secret enables you to experience the world like you never have before through our wholesale booking platform, luxury vacation homes, villas, cruises, and our flagship group curated escapes to the most exciting parts of the world. And we don't stop there. You are a VIP, and we want to make sure you always feel that way. We give you access to memorable experiences with VIP events centered around F1 racing, Wimbledon, Kentucky Derby, the Open, NFL, NBA, NHL, and more. Like VIP packages to the most popular concerts and festivals that we all know and love. Club Secret gives you savings on other lifestyle benefits such as telemedicine to save you time and money, popular retail brand partners, and more. So for less than Starbucks cup of coffee a day, we want you to have the VIP life every day, not just every once in a while. What's in the membership again? You get 30% off all premium product lines, save time and money at telemedicine, having a doctor access 24/7, wholesale hotel booking engine, curated escapes, VIP experiences, brand partner discounts, loyalty points on most things purchased in the community, and more. So if you want to claim your VIP status now in our Ultimate Lifestyle community, text or direct message the person back immediately that had you watch this video to learn more.
Hi everybody, I'm back again, and I know you saw that incredible commercial of Club Secret. Please send me a message. I don't think everybody understands this is a membership club that you can live like a VIP, basically. You don't have to be rich to get into the program. It's not that kind of program, but you can experience things that you would normally not. And getting access to VIP events like Formula One, Miami Fashion Week, and things like that, things that you would normally not be able to go to. And why not venture in something else in your life and add a memory? I mean, there's so many beautiful things to do around the United States and around the world. Travel's open right now. So right now there's a special with Club Secret. If you join, you can either win, you get one trip for two, 5 days, 4 nights, either somewhere in Mexico like Puerto Vallarta or Cancun or Punta Cana and DR. And that's included in the first package for 2 people. You get the ticket. And if you get the larger package, you can get 3 trips, a cruise as well, and a European hotel vacation. Take advantage of it. I'm telling you, I'm just trying to give you something that's really good, that I use their products, and I can't wait to travel. So I'm going to continue here with Mom. Mom's still here with me. And we just talk a little bit about music. I talked about last week about when I was just me, talking about how much I love music. Music's always been part of my life since before I was born, since my mother's a pianist. And my mother has always told me how when she was, she was very young, when I was talking about how she lived in the studio there in Manhattan. My grandparents were poor, but they always had a plate of food to eat. They always had clothes and shoes to wear. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather was very proud, and he always worked, and my grandmother worked. So whatever little money they had, they always knew how to save. I don't know how my grandmother did it. I don't know how much money she made. She couldn't make that much money, but she used to save every week. She saved her $5 or whatever it was, mm-hmm. $5. And when she retired, she had $30,000, $40,000 saved up, and that's a lot of money, for somebody who didn't have anything. But she sacrificed. She always sacrificed and just put a little away, and nowadays we make a lot more money. We can't even put $1 away. And we'll go to buy a coffee for $10, and then we're crying, I don't have any money. So maybe we should start going back to thinking of having a little piggy bank, even just putting your change, because I know I did that for a little while. When I had times in my life that I struggled, that I was in between jobs and then have a lot of money coming in, and that little change, that little piggy bank, I went to it and I had like $100 in there. It was nice to find that change, so maybe just a little thought that just came up my head. But my mother used to tell me that because of that, they couldn't buy a piano. So she basically took paper, right? She took a paper and she did the scale of the piano on a paper and folded it open. And then also, she used to tell me about, there was somebody else that used to play the piano in the building. In the building. And she loved hearing it. So she would go and sit at the step outside her door just to listen to the piano. And I think one time they invited you in to play the piano.
Finally, she opened the door, catches me on the floor there, and she said, come in. Why are you sitting there? I said, because I love the piano and I'm listening. Right. So she started giving me classes, piano. Oh, she's the one who started giving me piano lessons.
Imagine that, a neighbor gave you lessons. Remember. But you had your makeshift piece of paper, piano, all the scales, and she would just practice and she knew in her head because she has the talent she had comes from like have you ever seen Amadeus, the movie about Mozart, how the music was just surrounding his head, and the music just always was in her head and all the time, and that's what mommy tells me, that she always had music. And she's composed, I have a whole book, a stack, maybe more than 20 lyrics and compositions that she's done, that she has all organized in a book. And she has about 7 or 8 that were recorded on Ansonia Records and another record label during the back in the 60s. So 1961, Joe Valle was a singer, up and coming, rising singer back in the day, playing on the radio and shows during that time on mostly radio. And my father was his pianist for 8 years, and that's how my mother landed up meeting my father during the course of the music. And he met my mother. My mother was very young. My mother was 23 years old when this happened. So she was really young, composing music. And she met my father because he was a pianist, and then he was. So it lands up that Joe Valle took one of my mother's songs, recorded it. He sang her lyrics, and my father was playing the music. So I'm trying to get that digitalized. I have the LP right now. Actually, I should have just I have to get the LP out of storage, but I have a new record player that you can plug into the computer and digitalize it. So I have to digitalize that music that she is stated as the composer of that song. Yeah. And so that was her time, her fame, and what else do you remember?
I laugh about it because I remember I had started working as secretary, so every paycheck I would save my money. If I needed to walk instead of taking the train, I would walk because I wanted to save the money to buy a piano. So I would go to the Wurlitzer Company, which is in Manhattan, around the 42nd, something like that. And I would go in and look at all the pianos. And finally, this one man, I always remember him, a real short man, he used to say every week that I would go there, and I would say, would you mind if I just go around and try some of the pianos and see what can I afford, in what period of time do I need to save to buy that? So sure enough, he realized that I was sincere, that I really wanted to do that. So he would have a grand piano, big concert piano right in the center, open up. You say, Maria, you're welcome to sit there and play. I still get goosebumps. And it says, and play as long as you want to. And I said, fine, but I need to buy a piano for home, and I live in a small apartment. So I have the Wurlitzer, which is what I have at home now. I still have a spinet at home. And every pay, I would drop off money until I bought my piano. Finally, when it was all paid for, then I said, I don't want it beforehand, because as much as he wanted to give me the piano and then have me pay it later, I said, no, when I pay it off, it's mine, then I will have it sent to my house. And that's the piano I still have at home. But it was amazing, because what happened was, because of the fact that he had that grand piano at the entrance, and I would be playing, he would give me music to read, and I'm playing there, people would come in, and little did I know that actually I was selling. Because people would come in and said, well, can you try this number? And of course I could read. I mean, I was always reading music, so I could read anything, play it.
You were young,
said,
yeah.
So beautiful.
So she was selling piano. She didn't know. You didn't get a commission. What happened here?
Yeah. Well,
they should have at least given you the piano for free, right?
Well, I'm sure that it cost me probably less than I would have paid for, but still, it was quite a bit.
No, but you can tell the quality of this piano. So it's a solid wood piano. We had it tuned a couple of years ago. We keep getting it tuned. It still works.
How old is it?
She bought it in 1961, 62.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So older than me, almost 60 years, 60?
Yeah, 50, 60 years.
Yeah, and it's perfect condition.
But I didn't let anybody play. Like, kids would come in, my cousin.
Oh, like, we knew when I was a little girl, don't touch the piano. Because it's wood. It's like a mahogany wood. So, and then you can't put anything on top of it, because then it would scratch the wood. So
I said, no, that's
so she always kept it in mint condition, and she still plays on it. She plays her Chopin. I grew up with classical music, so Chopin, Tchaikovsky, Beethoven. My mother took me to classical concerts in Lincoln Center when I was little. I always remember seeing the Nutcracker for the first time, Swan Lake. We went to the opera. She always took me on anything classical in the arts. I think the best place was the Museum of Discovery and Science, I think it's called, up in Manhattan. No, Museum of Natural History. Museum of Natural History. I love that. They did that, I think the movie with the comedian, The Night at the Museum or something, that the museum comes alive. Ben Stiller movie or something. They did that at that museum. And as a little girl, when you see a dinosaur and these creatures so big, it was like, I was in awe, like, oh wow, what is this, you know? I still remember that.
Well, it wasn't that far from where we lived, and what I used to do, since I was on the west side, going to the east side, I would take Central Park and I would walk where the bus trail is.
Right.
We'd walk all the way from Central Park all the way to the Fifth Avenue,
Right.
really, and then from there walk to the Museum of Natural History. And boy, how can you? How
Everything
can
was
you
there.
Everything's
Lincoln
there.
Center. And, I
Oh
mean, there's
my
just beautiful
goodness.
a lot of cultural things in New York, even though it's like the concrete city, as I call it, because that's what it is. I couldn't live in New York anymore now after I live in an open space like Florida now.
Yeah.
I can't live without the beach. The beach is just amazing. So,
But I have some beautiful memories there because growing up with really very little money in the family, I still was exposed to the classical music, the artists, the art, the paintings. I loved all that. So to me, it didn't matter if I had to walk a mile to go to the museum.
And in New York, we used to walk a lot. I think
yes.
I mean, during the time when I was young, everybody was healthier, I think.
Yeah.
Plus, we didn't have the fast food that we had now. I think about that. When I was a little girl, I didn't really eat fast food because it was so expensive. It was really expensive to go. But so back then, you know, as I say, every generation says life was simpler. It was just different, right? Every year things get more advanced. We have different technology, so things change. Like the car upgrade. So now now they have electric cars, which I don't know if I like those too much yet. But electric cars, and soon we'll be flying. I don't know how we're gonna fly though, because I can't drive on the ground. So you imagine if we have to fly. Does anybody realize that they want to have flying cars? I'm sorry, I just random thought that I think of, like, you can't drive on the ground. How are you going to be crashing in the sky? But anyway, I want to leave just a final thing about examples of humanity that I found on the internet, and I'll put my sources later. And it just saying examples of humanity is just one, words of encouragement, giving people words of encouragement on a daily basis, you know, to live better, do better. Two, strengthen your bonds with your family and friends. My mother, you know, very important in my life. Like I said, I'm very fortunate and grateful that my mother's still around at her age, and we both survived COVID. If you can believe this, a miracle mother here survived COVID, had pneumonia. I mean, it was December was a nightmare for me, and for all the blessing and the love that I gave her and the love we have in our family, she's still here. And so 3 was being gratefulness. 4 is being an active listener or listening to people. And 5, just share love and give a hug to somebody. So I'm leaving it with that today. Just share a hug and give a hug to somebody today and make somebody happy. So until next week at Rebooted the Podcast, Alita Hernandez. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Rebooted the Podcast to learn about each episode's guests and topics. This is your host, Alita Hernandez.